complicated too. Okay, we're going to start the questioning this time with Ed, so keep the mic there, Ed. The school committee is looking into the possibility of bringing all-day kindergarten to East Greenwich for the 2015-16 school year. While no price tag is yet available, it is safe to estimate it would add an annual cost upwards of $200,000. Since the town council must approve the town's overall budget, including the school budget, if elected, would you support all-day kindergarten if it came with such a price tag? And again, we're going to start with candidate Ed Field.
I've heard figures that are more like 500 to 700,000, depending on the teachers that are required, the facilities that are required, and the transportation, etc. An awful lot of people in this town spend a lot of money sending their children to daycare and to other places while both parents work. I understand that. On the other hand, there's a lot of people in town who do not have children in school and think that perhaps a half a day of kindergarten is good, a whole day of kindergarten is questionable. So, like anything else, I'd like to hear both sides of the story and like to evaluate it and then make a decision based on good information. Right now, I don't really know.
Okay, thank you. Susie Yankee, I believe you served on the school committee, correct? So this might be an interesting, you might have some thoughts on this. Do you support all-day kindergarten if this comes with a big price tag, maybe 200, maybe 500,000? We're going to try and keep everybody's answer on this one to a minute, by the way, because I'm sure there's going to be some rebuttal, okay?
Gee, I would have about 15 minutes to answer this question, because there are a lot of different factors. But the most important one, I think, as a member of the town council is, it doesn't really matter what I think, because that is the purview of the school committee. The school committee decides what their program is. The school committee decides what the curriculum is. They make the decision. The only decision that the town council has in respect to the schools is their budget. So we get their entire school budget. They determine what their program is. So whether any of us up here agree or disagree with it is really irrelevant, because it is not our job to determine what the schools put forth in it. All we have control over is the school budget. So we give them a number and they decide how they're going to spend their money.
All right, let's talk to Sean Todd about this very issue.
You stole my answer.
Oh, sorry.
Repeat it, Robert.
So Sue's right. It's not our decision, about the school committee's decision. I read in the paper this morning that superintendent said that if budget wasn't an issue, he's for it, right? I guess I would be too if budget wasn't an issue here, but budget is an issue, and it does come through as a line item to the town council, and all we can do is say yes or no to it. And in our candidates meetings, we discussed this at length, and like came out that the numbers were $100,000 per teacher times about 4 teachers. You're about 400,000 plus about 75,000 per school to retrofit the stuff. You're over $500,000. And you also have to look at the delta. I think what I was pretty surprised to hear that there's 11 daycares in East Greenwich. Everybody know that? 11 daycares. So one of the things you have to look at is the delta between what they're getting now and another $500,000 a year, and what those kids will get then. So if it came through and there was no change in the school budget and it was in there, great. But if it was a substantial increase to taxpayers that I represent, we got to have a long discussion about it. So again, it's not our decision, obviously, the school committee.
Okay, Robert, your thoughts on this?
Well, like I said, I've lived here a long time, and I've seen us needing 3 elementary schools to 4 elementary schools, back to 3 elementary schools, and back to 4 elementary schools. So, and like the previous people said, it's not our budget to determine what we do with it. It's up to the school department to determine what they do with the budget. They just have to fall within the top of the line, the end, the total budget. How it benefits people, that's up to the school department to decide. But as far as how it's going to benefit the majority of the taxpayers, is if they can meet the necessary numbers, I'd be in favor of it. But if they can't meet the necessary numbers, and I'm not saying just for now, but if they go in and they do, okay, we're gonna do it, we can fold the tune, and then 2 or 3, 5 years down the road, all right, oh, now we got full-time kindergarten, we need another school, or we need additions, and that's gonna further add to the cost.
Okay, Bill, your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. First of all, a couple things. I was disappointed to have to send my daughter to private kindergarten because with 2 parents working, the half-day thing wasn't working for us, and I'm sure many East Greenwich families experienced that. That was how I thought about that years ago when my daughter was there. Now, I understand it a little bit differently. Because there's lots of research that shows that this is not just a, hey, you know, half-day K is pretty good and full-day K is nice. There's research that shows that it makes a big difference, actually, for a lot of kids and how they do later. So that's an important thing to consider. And I totally agree, this starts with the school committee, right? The school committee's got to start. And there are lots of initiatives that are being talked about. Changing start times. I hear that's not revenue neutral. There are lots of needs and lots of great ideas for the schools. The school committee has to lead on what's the most important thing. But, you know, the town council has a leadership role, obviously, in this town. And one of the things we think East Greenwich is known for is having excellent schools. We are now one of just a small handful of towns in Rhode Island that don't provide all-day kindergarten. And I don't think it's in anybody's interest in town, whether you have kids in the schools or haven't had kids in the schools for 30 years, for East Greenwich to start to lose its reputation as being a place where there are excellent schools. So this is an issue that we need to deal with. And I also don't think the town council gives the school committee a number and says, you go figure it out. I think the school committee puts together what's hopefully a thoughtful budget. And I do think it's incumbent on us to say, hey, you got to do your due diligence. You got to exhaust all that ways for getting some grant money to help put this into effect. Find other ways to save money in your budget. But then you present the budget to us. And we've got to, I think, work hard to find a way within the limits that are imposed on us by state law to try to get things like that funded. Thank you.
In the interest of fairness, too, we would ask that everybody hold their applause till the end of the forum, just because we want to get everybody's time in. Gene, your thoughts on this? I always forget that microphone's got to travel all the way down to the end of the table, which gives me time to make a little commercial. We did have a camera here from ABC6 earlier, so some video of this forum will be on the news tonight at 11. That's my one and only commercial done. I didn't go 30 seconds on my commercial, so you can have the rest of my time, Gene.
I guess I'd say that I would listen to the recommendations of the school administration and the school committee. I think per state law, there's a cap per year, year over year, 4%. They're looking at 2% over the last, increases of 2% over the last, few years. Yeah, it's an issue. Definitely, it's an issue. We got to think about the budget. What are people willing to spend? The taxpayers. But I would listen to those recommendations from the school board and the school administration and Superintendent Mercurio.
Gene, thank you. Michael Isaacs is next.
Thank you. I'm not sure I have a lot different to say. I certainly support having high-quality schools. Who doesn't? We need to do it for the sake of an educated populace. We need to do it for the sake of educating the children in this town and maintaining high standards. It also helps the community as a whole because the schools help support the property values in this town, which make this a desirable place to live and makes it a place where people want to move into. My daughter went to the public schools here. She got a good education and is doing well because of that. As was said, this is not a council decision. The council has no authority over programming decisions and no line item authority. So as a council member, and I've been reading the papers or reading what's going on with this, I certainly want to hear the cost benefits of this, how this benefits the school system as a whole, what are the benefits to the students who would be involved in this program, and to understand what the cost of this would be and how they would be paid for. Again, it's not up to the council to make a programming decision, but if the school committee decides this is going to be pursued, then it is up to the town council to work cooperatively with the school committee to figure out how this would be paid for, What adjustments could or should be made in other programs or in other areas of the overall budget? And how do we deal with this in a manner that makes sense for East Greenwich, makes sense for the taxpayers, makes sense for the parents, makes sense for the students that are affected?
Okay, and Mark Schwager gets the way on this last.
As far as the full-day kindergarten, I think it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. It just seems to me that the momentum toward full-day kindergarten is there, both because of the educational benefits and also just modern family life. So I think this is something that we're going to have in this town. I'm just not sure when it's going to happen. And I also would say the same thing is probably true about later start times at the high school. I think the evidence continues to accumulate that this is good for our students, good for our community. So I think these things will happen. As far as the economics of it, since it's something that I think is going to happen, the economics are going to have to be done by the school committee. They're the ones who are going to have to decide their priorities and make a budget, put a budget together that can be accepted and passed at the council level. I would add that, as Mr. Stone said, I think the council can be very involved in issues that are not directly under our our statutory authority. A number of years ago, when we were going to build new schools in town, there was a $50 million bond that was proposed in town. And this was something that obviously the school committee and educational advocates were supporting. And the town council got behind that bond. Town councilors went to house parties, they held meetings, we held open house sessions, and that bond got passed. So I think if the school committee comes to us and we have a real team together and they say to us, this is something our community needs, and the town council gets behind that, I think that will move things, accelerate things, and help us be more successful.
Mark, thank you. Anybody want to rebut or challenge anything anyone said? Sue would like to weigh in. Sue Cienki.
I think it's important to understand.
Mike, yeah, Sue.
Sorry. Got it.
There you go.
I think it's important to understand that the school committee will have the expertise when it comes to programming. I do not want to see the death of that expertise come at the expense of the school program. Having been involved as school committee chair for several years, it was our job to convince every member of the town council why we needed new schools, why we needed renovations. This issue, the same thing. It's the school committee's job to convince everybody in town why this is a good idea. I would not want to take that be our job. And when Mr. Stone said, we don't give them a number. No, the state gives us a number, and that's 30/50. We can only raise the taxes 3%. So when they're dealing with that, it's the school committee's decision to prioritize what they feel is necessary and convince us. And I think, as Michael Isaac said, we are very willing and cooperative partners in this, because we all want to see this town thrive, and the schools are a huge part of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're going to do a